Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Long Beach Recovery Act Nonprofit Relief Grant webinar. My name is Christina Krishbaum. I'm the Program Manager for the Nonprofit Partnership. Excited to have you here today to hear from Courtney Chatterson, who is the LBRA Program Manager with the Economic Development Department Business Development Bureau, here to share today updates and information on the recovery and the relief grant. So excited to have you all here. Just want to remind everybody of our virtual meeting protocols. If you would be able to rename your video panel to either your name or your organization, it helps us better know who's here. It's also really great for us to network and connect with you. If you're willing to be on video, we would love to see your smiling face, but we understand if you want to go behind video for today, that's perfectly fine. Please place yourself on mute when you're not speaking. It'll cut down on that cross noise. And we are recording this session, so we want to make sure that we hear very clearly the information from Courtney. Please feel free to use that chat. If you have questions, if you have comments or anything, please feel free. You can use that chat as well. I will be monitoring the chat for any questions, and I'll be feeding them to Courtney towards the end of the session. We're going to hold questions and answers towards the end, because odds are your questions will probably be answered during the session, but we'll see. And if you hear of something that you really like, please feel free and use those reaction buttons. If you find something that Courtney says that you think that is fantastic, well, feel free, pop a heart up there. And for many of us, we have additional emojis that we can use now, so don't hold yourself just to that heart or smiling face. By golly, there is all kinds of different things that you can be popping up and have yourself a sunny day. But feel free to have some fun with it. It lets us know if what we're saying really lands for you. And just as a reminder for everybody, I know that all of you found your way to TNP one way or another, and we're happy to see you. These are all other ways where you can follow us or find information on what we're offering. So if you are on social media, we are as well. We post up information about events, about grant opportunities, about networking opportunities. If you're on our email list, you'll find out all that information as well. You can also email us directly at info@tnpsocal.org if you have any requests for resources or support, if you're looking for any connections. If you're looking to for a project for your organization, you can email us at customsupport@tnpsocal.org. Ultimately, we are here to support you and your mission, so please let us know how we can best support you. With that, I want to bring up Courtney Chatterson. And I just want to thank you so much, Courtney, for putting together this information so quickly. Courtney and I met just recently at a Long Beach Chamber event, and she really got the word out to everybody there about the need for additional applications from nonprofits. And I was like, hi, let's connect. And we put this together really quickly, and she has done this a few times, so she's an old pro at it. But please feel free and ask your questions, because we're looking at specifically these relief grants for nonprofits. So Courtney, thank you again so much for joining us today, and the floor is yours. So if you would like to share your screen or show any slides, everything is set up and ready for you.
Great, thank you, and good morning, everybody. Let's see, I'll share my screen. And yeah, happy to be here to help share some more information about the nonprofit relief grant specifically. We spent a lot of time talking about the business grants, but there are some differences for the nonprofit grant. So we're going to focus specifically on those today. But if you are interested also in the business grants, I'm your best contact for any questions you have with those. Feel free to reach out about any of that as well. So before we dive in, I want to give a little bit of background information on the Long Beach Recovery Act. So this was approved by City Council on March 16th, 2021, in anticipation of the federal funding that came down. And so the LB Recovery Act includes multiple programs to advance economic recovery. And so this list here is just related to economic recovery, and it includes direct financial support through these grant programs, as well as free technical assistance, which will be coming more soon, marketing and promoting the city, providing digital resources as well there's a digital inclusion program coming, marketing local businesses to generate additional customer spending at our local stores, and more. So just so that you're aware, these are some of the first Long Beach Recovery Act programs that have launched, and there are many, many more coming. And this is just from our department. There's a lot that's coming from other departments like health. I know is going to be working with nonprofits. So just be aware that there's a lot here, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. So these 4 recovery or relief grants were launched at the same time: the Restaurant, Brewery, and Bar Relief Grant, Personal Service and Fitness Relief Grant for businesses. These both are awards from $5,000 to $25,000 for those specific sectors. And then the Small Business Relief Grant covers anyone who's not in one of those 2 sectors as a business, with smaller award amounts just because we have a smaller funding pool there. And then what we'll focus on today is the Nonprofit Relief Grant, which, similar to those first 2 programs, has award tiers between $5,000 and $25,000. Those award amounts are determined by gross annual revenue. So you'll fall into one of the different funding tier categories. So the amounts could be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, or $25,000, depending on your annual revenue. And I'll go into eligible uses of funding a little bit more below. So eligibility for this grant, you must be located and operating within Long Beach. You must have a City of Long Beach business license, and I'll talk a little more in detail about business licensing on another slide. You must be a 501c3 nonprofit, 501c19 nonprofit, or a fiscally sponsored organization. You also must have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19. If you were able to expand your operations and were doing really well during COVID, that's wonderful, but these grants specifically are meant to support those organizations that have struggled through the pandemic and been impacted by it. You must be currently open for business. So unfortunately, any organizations that have shut down are not eligible. Must have an active status with the California Secretary of State, must have less than 200 employees and no more than $2 million in gross annual revenue. So these grants are focused on smaller local organizations and not really meant to provide the larger support for those larger organizations. And then just a note that nonprofits that are to receive funding from the Recovery Act Creative Economy Grant will be placed on a wait list and can still receive funding if it's available. So the required documents you need to apply, this list is a little bit longer for nonprofits than for businesses because we do include nonprofit bylaws, articles of incorporation, and if you're a fiscally sponsored organization, a copy of the fiscal sponsorship agreement. For any organization, business or nonprofit, will also need the latest tax returns. So 2021 if you have them, or 2020 if you haven't completed 2021 yet. Also a copy of photo ID and W-9 form. There are a couple other pieces that you are optional on the application platform, but those are not required. It's only if you would like to upload them. For example, you could upload the actual document of the business license, but we just ask you enter it into the field for the question as a requirement. And if you would like to also upload the form, that provides additional backup for us, but it's not required. Also, if you would like to use the funding for one of the eligible uses is to cover expenses related to theft or vandalism, we ask that you upload some sort of documentation of those expenses, either the repairs that were needed or paying for your insurance deductible, for example. So the business licensing requirement, I want to talk a little bit more in depth about this, just because I know there has been confusion about who needs a business license and how you get one. And all nonprofits operating in the city of Long Beach are required to have a business license. That's city policy. So if you have your own 501c, whatever status, you can apply for a fee waiver so that you don't have to pay the business license fees. But if you are fiscally sponsored, it gets a little bit trickier. It's definitely still doable. It just requires some coordination with your fiscal sponsor. So if you have your own 501c3 or 501c19 status, just get your own business license, apply for the fee waiver, and you'll be good to go. If you are a fiscally sponsored organization, then you'll need 2 business licenses. one for the fiscal sponsor, and if they're not located in Long Beach, they can get an out of area license, which is pretty quick and easy to get. Or if they're located in Long Beach, then, the regular process. Hopefully they already have one. For the sponsored organization, there are two options. Either the fiscal sponsor can obtain a business license on the sponsored organization's behalf, and then they can use that fee waiver as well for that location. This is a great option if the fiscal sponsor is willing to do that for you. If they're not willing to take that on, then the sponsored organization can apply for their own business license directly. But unfortunately, because they don't have their own 501c3 status, they wouldn't be able to use the fee waiver. So there's those two options. From the city standpoint, it doesn't matter which one you choose, just that both organizations are licensed. And then I wanted to just point out as well that these grants are not first come, first serve. We are prioritizing applications based on with a weighted selection process. So for nonprofit organizations, we're prioritizing resources for nonprofits that provide important social safety net services, serve BIPOC communities, are led by BIPOC leaders, or serve areas of the city highly impacted by COVID-19 hospitalization rates. And just because I forgot to include the full written out definition, BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, or Person of Color. So we're trying to ensure the equitable distribution of resources through these grants. The prioritization for businesses is a little different, but this is what we're using for nonprofits. So if you tick any of those boxes, that just gives you an extra point or two towards your prioritization score, and all the applications will be ranked, and we'll be funding the highest ranked applications first. We are doing 2 rounds of, I guess for nonprofits, it's going to be 3 rounds of reviewing applications and doing that scoring. So it does help to apply earlier, but it definitely doesn't mean that you are too late to apply now. If we get more applications in and they are high priority scores, then they jump to the top of the list for the next round of review. And some important dates. So a notice went out this week that we extended the deadline for the nonprofit relief grant program. The business programs are still going to close on May 15th, but for nonprofits, I want to highlight the last 2 dates on here. You have until June 15th to complete your application for the grant, and you have until July 15th to secure your business license. So preferably you should have your business license before you apply. That just helps us to have all the data we need. But if you do need that extra time to get your business license secured, you can apply without it, and we'll just be following up with you afterwards to make sure that that gets completed before we are able to disperse any funding. And then eligible uses of funds, I just wanted to discuss this. I mean, I know that nonprofits, for nonprofits grants, a lot of the time come with strings. You need to use this for new programs, new resources. There's not a lot that can cover your just operating expenses. This one can. And I think that's just a big benefit of these relief grants. They're meant to help sustain your organizations. And we're not asking you to do any extra work with this money. So it can help cover your rent, payroll, utilities, personal protective equipment, furniture, fixtures, equipment, technology, hardware, marketing, costs associated with delivering programs even, and also repairs and expenses related to theft or vandalism or property damage. So pretty much it can cover anything you need it to. Just don't go buying yourself some fancy jewelry or a nice vacation with it, and you'll be okay. I also want to point out a couple of resources that can help support you in your application. We have the BizCare Hotline. This is staffed with our interns. They are trained on these grant programs, and they know who to ask when they don't know the answers to your questions, and they can get back to you. with the correct information. So you're welcome to call this number for assistance at 562-5704-BIZ. That's 4249. It's open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. You could also email the 4biz at longbeach.gov email address with any questions, and they can also get back to you that way. And if you would like to have in-person assistance, you can also attend one of the pop-ups. These are open Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Thursdays is a little bit shorter, but I'm forgetting at the moment exactly which hour is cut off of that day. But you can find the latest schedule for the pop-ups and the different locations at longbeach.gov/bizcare. You can just show up and walk in and get assistance on any of these days. Or if you'd prefer to have an appointment because you know you'll have limited time, you can make an appointment with one of our interns ahead of time, and they will reserve that time slot for you. So that's available. They are equipped with laptops, MiFis, printer, scanner. So if you need help uploading your documents, you're not sure how to fill out all your information on the portal, you just need some one-on-one assistance, that's what it's there for. There's also technical support available through our vendor LiveStories, who hosts the application through their Forward platform. So you'll see the words Forward and LiveStories a lot on this application, and LiveStories is the vendor, Forward is the platform. Hopefully that helps clarify a little bit. And if you do have any technical difficulties, you're not able to get your documents uploaded, you're not able to get the emails from of confirmation from LiveStories, you're not sure if something worked right, you can always reach out to their technical support hotline or email. That number and email are on here, and they'll get back to you within a day or two. Or if you call during their open hours, they should be answering the phone each time. So they're open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday for that hotline. And then this is me and my team. If you do need to ask more detailed questions, you're not finding the information you need on the website, you can always reach out to me and Alcira. We're the two main contacts for these grant programs. And then Katie Vega heads the BizCare team. So if you have any questions more specifically about BizCare, or you want to share your appreciation for their help, we always love to hear that kind of thing. That's her contact information there. And a couple of important links that I wanted to share. The grants are all available at longbeach.gov/smallbizgrants. It also includes the link for the nonprofit grant program. And then that longbeach.gov/bizcare link again, where you can find application assistance. So that's the end of this presentation. But before we jump into Q&A, I did want to just give you a quick walkthrough on the application platform. This is the main page for the Nonprofit Relief Grant Program. There's just a basic overview at the top, the Apply Here button, and a lot of you probably won't scroll below that, but you should, because there's more instructions about how to apply through this platform here. There was a helpful video. Here's the helpful video about how it's going to work. So if you're not as comfortable with an online application format, this might be nice for you to see what to expect when you create your account. It has the eligibility requirements and required documents, and then frequently asked questions. So check on here first if you do have any questions that you haven't found an answer to elsewhere. But if you do have additional questions, you can always reach out to me or my team. So when you click on Apply Here, it'll take you to the platform and you'll make an account. So you'll want to create a business, nonprofit, or landlord account. There's no landlords in our grant programs, but that's the standard platform feature. I already have an account, so I'm going to log in. And I just want to point out a couple of things that have been tripping up businesses and nonprofits in this platform. And we've made LiveStories aware of these things, and they're going to be making some platform improvements, but this is the tool we have for now. So I just want to point things out so that you don't get held up by any of these as well. So the programs are here. Sometimes this potentially eligible will show as ineligible or eligible. You can just ignore whatever this flag says. They have an eligibility engine that is sort of doing those calculations based on the information you've input in the About section. If you have no information there, it doesn't know anything about you. It does not have good information about whether or not you're eligible. So I would say refer to the eligibility requirements on the grant page, this one that we were just looking at. And if you believe you're eligible, apply, because it will be human beings reviewing your application rather than a computer program that's putting up these flags. So that's the first thing. Then I also encourage you not to worry too much about this About section. There are a lot of fields in here that are not required by our program. I'll go in and just show you a few. So the DUNS number, the SAMS number, we don't need. The organization description is optional. We ask you to fill that out in one of the actual questions for the application. A lot of this stuff is optional. The main things you need are just your basic information here, these three fields, your address and contact information. Although there's also, oh yeah, the people section here you do not need to fill out unless you have team members that you would like to be notified about this grant alongside you. That's what this is for. So don't get held up trying to add your whole staff on here. It's not required at all. There's also categories in here that we will want you to fill out. What type of organization are you? And your documents. So this is where you will upload all the required documents. The list of what's required is in the grant application itself. So you'll want to refer to that. But I can show you here what it looks like, and we'll also see what it looks like in the application itself. So you'll select a file to upload, but you want to be careful about selecting the correct type. So if I'm uploading my tax return, for example, or my W-9, I want to make sure that this is the correct subtype, type and subtype, because this platform can't read your documents for you. It can't categorize them. You have to tell the platform what the document is. So what's happened sometimes is people will say, oh, I'm putting my driver's license as my photo ID. So I'm putting license here, but that's actually business license. And that's not the correct categorization. So it won't recognize that you've fulfilled the required document for your photo ID. So what you want to do is go general, photo ID. There's also these other required document options here. So for nonprofit bylaws, articles of incorporation, anything else that you would need to upload, just it would go under the general category. So pay attention to that subtype for all your documents. And then let's take a look at the application itself. So you'll see here, this pulls from the About section. That's where it's coming from. So when you're filling this out, it'll take you back into the About section to edit. And so you don't need to fill in all the fields, just what is showing on your application here. So I have everything filled out here. I don't need to fill anything else in that section. And then this is where you'll see the required documents. So you see here, it says red required. I don't have anything uploaded, so it won't let me upload or submit my application until all of these turn green. So that's going to be in that document section, which you can go to here. And once you have all of these uploaded, it'll say complete and it'll be green. Your contact information. So you need to fill in all of these fields. And this again will take you back to that About section. So don't get hung up on anything that's not in here. And then you'll fill out these questions in your application, just asking for information about your organization, about impacts of COVID. This is all very straightforward from here on out. And then once you get down to the bottom, you're agreeing to terms and conditions here, agree, and you sign your name. You want to make sure that you sign it exactly as it was typed in when you made your account. Otherwise, it won't let you submit. So just be careful about that as well. And then once your application is submitted, you will be able to see it in My Applications. You can't go back to edit things afterwards. So you'll just be able to see, here's this application that I did submit, and it's off into the review whenever that happens. But you won't be able to go back into it afterwards. So if there is anything that you realize afterwards, oh, I put in the wrong document, maybe you now have your 2021 tax returns, you want to swap them out for the 2020, you can email that forward support email address, and they will be able to make those corrections for you. So that will be your main point of contact after you submit your application for any questions or any concerns about your application. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. If I didn't address any of your concerns, let me know.
Okay, we do have a couple of questions that were put in the chat, and please continue to pop your questions in the chat and I'll add them to that list. Thank you, Courtney, for that overview. Do appreciate that. First question that we had was actually, and it was just as you were saying, that you cannot go back and edit. As you're filling out the application, can you save and come back to it later, or is it all in one sitting that we need to do that?
No, you can come back and edit it later. Yeah,
okay.
It will save.
Okay, perfect. Next question that was in the chat, and forgive me if you covered this, I just want to make sure that we're covering what was in the chat and what was in the webinar. If the nonprofit has multiple locations with a budget over $2 million, can they present financials for just the Long Beach location to be considered for the grant?
No, so if the larger organization, it has a budget over $2 million. I mean, really, it's the difference between being part of a larger organization versus being a fiscally sponsored organization. So if you're a fiscally sponsored organization, you're contributing money to the fiscal sponsor, right? They're not directly financially supporting you. But if you're getting financial support from that larger organization, then that's where it's not, you're going to be considered a larger organization or part of the larger whole.
I think that with this one, they were just saying like multiple locations with it, but so if one location can't be considered as a separate of.
Yeah, if they're part of the larger organization, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense on that one. And if there's a follow-up on that one, please post it in chat, let us know. Moving to the next question, if an organization is fiscally sponsored and the fiscal sponsor has more than 200 employees, but the Long Beach organization has less or fewer than 200 employees, which number will the city look for eligibility?
For fiscally sponsored organizations, you should include your information, not your sponsor's information. So that's where we are also asking for fiscally sponsored organizations to include their sponsorship agreement and their annual budget because your financials are going to be different from what's on that 990. So we are going to be drawing that distinction because there are a lot of smaller organizations that we know locally are fiscally sponsored. So we wanted to make sure to include them, but it does get a little trickier with that setup to figure out exactly what we need to look at. So we're definitely willing to work with you on that if you have any questions about how to make that happen.
Reach out, folks, reach out. So next question, we are a church in Long Beach, but we do nonprofit community work like food distribution and recovery. Will we qualify for this grant?
So unfortunately, religious organizations are not covered by this grant.
If our organization began in 2020, would we qualify? They've been in existence since the COVID pandemic began, but they've been impacted by it in terms of funding and programming. So there's some qualifiers there.
Yes. So there's no requirement that you must have been in operation before 2020. You just have to have started before March of this year. So, I mean, probably if you started just in February this year, you haven't had a chance yet to be impacted by COVID. I don't know. We'll see. But that's the cutoff is March 1. You have to have been in existence prior to March 1 of this year. And then you also have to have been impacted by COVID to qualify.
Thank you. What types of documents can we provide to show how the organization was impacted by COVID-19?
We aren't requiring any documents to back that up. In previous programs, it's been a big hurdle to overcome to provide, proof of financial impact. And so we're not asking for that this time. We're asking for you to include in one of those application questions, it asks how you've been impacted, and we ask you to describe what the impact has been. And so it's your own self-attestation of that under penalty of perjury. You're going to say at the bottom of your application, I certify that all of this is true and correct and all of that good stuff. And so we're going to take your word for it. And we don't need any additional documentation beyond that.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. We had a question in there. Is the application and reporting process really strict? We saw the application process was pretty easy. What about any reporting guidelines? Or is it real stringent on the reporting guidelines, or what are you looking at as a follow-up?
So there isn't necessarily going to be follow-up afterwards. We're not requiring everyone to report back, but we are going to need to audit a certain percentage of grant recipients afterwards to verify that funds were spent on eligible expenses. So that's going to be, later on, probably sometime next year, we'll be following up, identifying a random selection of grant recipients to audit at the end.
Well, we appreciate some of the flexibility in this. I like that. There was a comment in there, some of our confusion with the application on page 1, citing business license shows as optional in the chart of required documents, yet instructions say it is required. Can you clarify that piece?
Yeah, so the document upload is optional. Having a business license is required. So there is a question that's required in the application itself where you must enter your business license number. And that's the important piece for us to have that number in our data. That's part of how we're tracking all the organizations. Plus, to verify that you have that requirement met. So as long as we have your number, we don't need the actual document, but you can also upload it. That's an option.
Should a nonprofit apply for grants for each applicable category, or should we apply for a grant that can be applied to multiple categories? And this one says that, for example, scholarships for students, rent, repairs, etc.
I'm not sure I understand that question. Can you repeat that?
I copied it direct from chat, so I'm reading it as I'm doing it too, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure. And if somebody, I think, if you're able to clarify that question, whoever asked that, let us know. If you want to put it in chat or if you want to unmute, let me know. But we'll come back to that one because I think there's a little bit of clarity.
That's me.
Okay. Yeah, please.
Yeah. The question is, for example, if a rent was impacted, that your rent was raised, even though it was COVID and you're having difficulty paying that rent, and there were repairs that needed to be done, but you didn't have the funding during COVID to take care of those repairs, and there was tuition that was lost, and scholarship money for students that was not able to be funded during COVID. Should you apply separately for each of those categories, or can it be all in one?
So it's one grant, one application.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and all of those are eligible expenses. So you would apply for the grant, and one of the questions in the application asks you what you intend to spend the funding on. So you can list all of that information there, and then you'll sort of check the categories in another question as well. So we're just documenting the intended use of the funds.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Yeah.
Next question is there a workaround on the physical address for nonprofits? And they explain a bit, forgive me, that they have a long-term mailing address, which is a PO box. They have a permanent physical address in Long Beach as we lease. We do not have a permanent physical address in Long Beach as we lease venue space for programming. However, 100% of their programming is in Long Beach. Is there a workaround on that physical address?
This sounds like someone I've talked to before. Is this P3 Theater Company?
It might be. Oh no,
Hi.
It's not. We have another
another one. Okay.
Yeah, it's another one.
Similar situation.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, this sounds familiar.
If they have somebody on their executive board that lives in Long Beach, can they use that address? What's a possible workaround?
Yes. So you do need a Long Beach address for a business license. If you have a board member in Long Beach, you can use that as like a home office base. You could look into the location that you're renting. I don't know if that's potentially an option, but you do need a Long Beach address to be considered to be located in Long Beach. And I know that can be tricky. So if there is a more difficult situation, or you want to request an exemption There is a process that we're working on to, process those requests, review them, and approve them internally. And I can't guarantee that that's something we would grant an exemption for, but you can always ask. We're doing that through LiveStories as a beginning point for those requests. So that same technical assistance email, you can email them there, submit your application, and then send an email with as much information and details you can include. And they will be forwarding any exceptions to policy to city staff for review and approval. But I mean, right now we need Long Beach location, Long Beach address. And that's part of the requirement for business license as well. So that's going to get tricky if you don't have a Long Beach location. I see a hand up.
Yeah, Dee, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, hi, Courtney. That was my question, and yes, I knew that John Peterson with P3 had also asked that question. So I guess for just a little deeper clarification, when we submit for our business license, is it accurate that we can use any of our executive board members who do have a Long Beach address for that application?
Yeah, I think other organizations have done that. If there is one of their locations that is used more as like a home office for the organization, then that's a great option to do.
Okay, super. Thanks so much.
And we have a little bit more time. If you have further questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, or you can unmute and directly connect with Courtney if you have an additional question. I just want to remind everybody of the deadlines. There are a couple key deadlines in here, the grant deadline, and then also there's an extension deadline on the business license. Can you remind everybody of those deadlines, please?
So June 15th for your application for the grants, and then you have until July 15th to get your business license. And I see a question just popped up in the chat about how to apply for a business license. And Christina, you guys have some resources that can help with that, right?
I believe so. There's we have a couple of TA support that has walked organizations through applying for business license through the city of Long Beach. So if you're interested in some of that support, I'm going to pop in our email address and feel free and email us directly. And we do have, there's a couple of places, I think, on the City of Long Beach website also that kind of walk you through that as well. So we'll find those resources and certainly send them out to you. Absolutely.
And you're also welcome to call that BizCare Hotline. They have answered questions about business licensing and helped businesses navigate that process. It's the same deal for nonprofits as well, the same process. So you're welcome to use that resource.
And for those that are checking the chat, I want to thank Ashley Zachary right now for popping in a couple of links to the exemption application for nonprofits as well as the business license application. I appreciate people that do this and do the support. You're amazing. This is what our nonprofit sector does. I love that you can assist at any time. It's great. Nice.
Yes.
I appreciate
please
that.
send it in together. Don't have to do it separate. Please send it in together. I wasn't aware of the waiver, so I just called and got the form. So if I can help someone skip a step, there it is right there. So please download those, and I hope they're beneficial for everyone.
Blessings to you, Ashley. Thank you so much for that support and that assistance. I appreciate you so much. You're getting hearts all over. I love it. Any further questions that come up, please let us know. And one more thing on those slides that you shared, Courtney, would we be able to share out some of those with everybody here? Especially important is the contact information. I know that I was trying to take a screenshot real quick, and I'm sure that there were other people in here doing that as well. I will make sure that that contact information slide is sent over directly to everybody as soon as we're done here, so that way you can have direct access to that hotline. That's going to become real important, I'm sure, for some people.
I'll send you the full slide deck.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Courtney. I'm not seeing any questions yet, but I am going to take just a moment here and vamp, just in case, because I know sometimes questions come up. Just to promote a couple other things because it's deadline time, right? So for those of you that are we're all in Long Beach right now, hopefully. You may have heard of the Long Beach Board Connection coming up, and this is a partnership with the Nonprofit Partnership and Leadership Long Beach together. We hope you're able to join us. We have the Long Beach Board Connection next week on May the 4th. I get excited. I get to say May the 4th be with you. So we're holding this at MOLA, another one of our wonderful local nonprofits. If you're interested in attending, to present your or represent your nonprofit and search out for some board members. We do still have some space available for about 6 more organizations. We are also looking for prospective board members to join that. So if you're interested in joining a different board, or if you know people that are interested in that, anybody in the community can come and attend that event. You can register at the same link. And I want to remind everybody of just one more deadline, and that is for our Long Beach Gives applications. I know that we are talking to a lot of Long Beach Gives participating organizations here. We are also looking at the application deadline for Long Beach Gives closes May 2nd. So you'll want to get that application in. If you have participated before, then you do not need to do a full application again. You can renew your application and your profile at longbeachgives.org. Just want to remind everybody, again, that's May 2nd. So it's right around the corner. We hope to have another 200 organizations taking part to support you in all your efforts for sustainability. So get in that application if you can, if you're looking at participating again this year. Let's see, any other comments that came in? I think that is it. Oh, one. Nope, we got that point. I think we covered that point of clarity for Joy King. The business required to do business in Long Beach or just have a Long Beach address. Oh, did you cover that point of clarity? Is the business required to do business?
I just added in the chat a comment about that. So anyone doing business in Long Beach is required to have a business license. If you're not based in Long Beach, you can get an out of area license. And that's a pretty quick thing to get. So that's also something to consider for fiscally sponsored organizations. If your fiscal sponsor is based outside of Long Beach, they can get an out of area license, and that will cover that requirement for them.
What a great tip. Thank you for that. And thank you for that clarifying question. That actually really helped for a couple of orgs, I'm sure. I think that's it on our end. I think we did a great overview of the process. Thank you for showing the website too, and really how simple some of the questions were. A lot of it is automatically understood information on your part. And I clocked it. I think it was 40 total fields to fill out for some relief funding. So it's not a huge endeavor, but some of those questions, if they trip you up, get in touch with that hotline. Definitely, make use of those resources. And don't forget that deadline is coming up. But I thank you so much for the extension on the deadline. I know that that was something that that you were working really for, Courtney, and I appreciate your advocacy in that space and extending the deadline for the nonprofit space for this application. So I think that wraps it up for us. If we have any further questions, what's the best way to relay those questions over to you and your team, Courtney?
That email that I left in the slides is great. You can send an email to myself, and Alcira as well can help make sure we don't miss anybody. So if you want to include both of us on there, her email is on that same slide as well.
I'll make sure that gets out to everybody. That's it for us for today. On behalf of TNP, we want to thank you, Courtney, and the City of Long Beach for putting this all together. Want to thank everybody for showing up today and for strengthening our nonprofit sector. We look forward to seeing you again soon, either at our board connection or for Long Beach Gives or one of our many wonderful events that are coming up. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of the day. We'll talk to y'all soon. Good luck and go apply. Get that funding. Bye, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.